Welcome along to the Make It Count podcast. My name is David.
My name's Matt.
And we get to be here recording a podcast.
In person.
I mean, we're the Taylor Bros.
Happy New Year.
And let's do everything out of order.
I don't know what you're talking about.
So,
how are you?
Last Tuesday.
So, we're shifting into a new gear this year. We're doing a little mini-series on mindset shifts.
Yes, you wanted to talk about mindset shifts, and the first one we're going to wrestle with a little bit is this idea of have to versus get to.
Yeah, we get to record a podcast today.
So, exactly. Where did you come across this?
Gosh, where did I come across this? It might have been Jon Gordon, actually. He's very much of that sort of positive mentality. He's done work with, I think, several big sports teams, I think a couple of NFL teams as well, thinking about what does it look like to have that positive mentality as a team. And one of his little things to focus on is, where is my language? Is my language have to? And if it is, then move it to get to. It's just far more, in Stephen Covey language, proactive rather than reactive.
And yeah, because there's that idea of, oh, I have to do this and I have to do that. And it's this external obligation on us. Yeah. Which can feel a bit almost like a wearisome, like, oh, I've got this thing to do and I have to do this and I have to do that, and there's a lot of things I have to do, and actually it's exhausting listening to people talk like that. And so his suggestion is, hey, actually turn it into a get to, into a gratitude. Hey, I get to do this today. Isn't this amazing? Like, maybe it's not the most amazing thing, but there's some examples of when you've done that.
Absolutely. It's for one of the things that I started doing a few months ago was I signed up for a Spanish course. It's one of those, not eternal, but one of those long-lasting sort of like visions of like, oh, I really want to do this one day. We'd obviously spent a couple of years around Latin America, Spanish-speaking countries, and I had gotten to a certain level of fluency, but it had all gone away since coming back. COVID years. Wasn't travelling, it's not the priority. This year we were going to go to Spain in the October, and I'll link to that episode we did from the balcony in Barcelona. But I was like, I really want to pick up Spanish again. And I was into a couple of months into this challenge, and I realised I was getting myself stressed. I was like, oh man, I'm behind on this thing, and I'm like, of course I got work and I have to do this, I have to do that. And I was like, hang on, nobody's forcing me to do this. I get to, and even just as soon as I started thinking about it, instead of like, oh, I have to do my Spanish, I was like, no, I get to, I willingly put myself into this, and it just changed the energy, and it immediately didn't make it any less difficult, didn't mean I didn't have to put the effort in, but it did mean I actually wanted to do it more rather than this external obligation. I'm the victim, I have these things put on me. It was, no, this was a clear example of, I get to do this. Not many people have that opportunity to choose to, oh yeah, I'm going to learn a language, in my spare time.
And it seems strange. Does it actually, changing the language, really make a difference? Like, if I've gone from have to get to, surely the underlying thing is still the same for that person.
I think, going back to what I said earlier about Stephen Covey, it's a mindset shift from reactive to proactive. And I think that, as I was just saying, I do believe it changes the energy. I feel it in myself, and I'm sure there's some neurobiology about that. I remember hearing years ago something about the fact that like the area that speech happens in the mind, in the brain, is very close to sort of the area where all of the commands for movement go out to all of the areas in the body. I don't know whether that's true or not, but it's almost like if I speak negatively, it's almost like I'm sending out a negative energy to the rest of my body going, oh, you're not going to do it. And it's that quote, oh, who was it? It was that the person that says they can and the person that says they can't, both are correct. And I think it has that sort of effort of, if I'm victim mentality, oh, I have to do this today, I might do it, but I'm going to do it with that lethargy.
I suppose what I have been a bit obtuse, maybe on purpose, maybe not, but actually we would understand that what comes out of the mouth reveals what's inside, right? But if I just change that have to get to, does that also change the inside? Are we saying that, hey, if I change my language, I also change the inside? Or are we saying, actually, we've just sort of covered up a shallow topping that, covers the inside?
I would say, I think it's a bit of both. So Atomic Habits, James Clear, he talks a lot about like, the power of small things is that they build up over time. But really, the major part that this builds to is identity formation. And so absolutely, my language, first off, I think is an indicator. It's an indicator of where I am and what I truly believe. But if I can change my language enough times, and it is about enough times, not just it can start to just rewrite that program of, no, actually, this isn't an obligation, or this isn't an external thing. You're not a victim of your circumstances. This is a opportunity. And it doesn't necessarily, in the most extreme case, nothing in the external situation changes. But because I've chosen to see it differently enough times, I actually start to behave differently, and then my identity follows. Stephen Covey's language, you can't choose whether it's raining or not, but you can choose whether to take your internal weather with you. You can choose to take the sunshine with you almost, or a very practical tent. I can't change whether it's raining. I can choose to take an umbrella.
Yes. And I suppose it's interesting in that regard, because I think it's that external, internal thing. I have to is somebody else's, or what I perceive somebody else's, external obligations on me. I have to do this for my job. I have to do this. I have to do that. Whereas the get to is much more empowering. And it's almost like, hey, I'm honored. I'm privileged. I'm grateful for this opportunity. But it's going, I chose this. Decisions I've made in my life, I choose this. I choose to make the most of this. I get to do this. I get to be here, right? Those sorts of things. And I think it's that external, internal. And maybe it's a word that I don't see used as much as maybe I did 5-10 years ago, but this idea of empowerment. That actually when we say, I get to do this, you're empowering yourself, but also there's an uplift as well. Like you said, your energy changes. There's a more positive, but also a more grateful attitude.
Yeah. A practical thing that I have done in the past, and I might start doing again, is instead of just forming a to-do list, which I think often we can interpret as have to-do list, where there's that silent have to. This is the obligations I have to do. Literally write my get to-do list today. Because, whether that is caring for someone, an elderly person or a child, or whether that is going to work and doing whatever it is your work is, if I change that perspective from I have to do this in order to get paid, or I have to do this because they're dependent on me, to I get to do this, I think inherently one thing that changes is I start to look for, why is this an opportunity? What is the gift in this? And if it is, for example, you're a teacher now, if it's I get to go and teach today, that's going to change the way how you interact with your colleagues and interact with the kids, because you're going, I get to impart knowledge and skills and ways to see the world that are going to benefit these kids, rather than I have to go and teach today, which makes it I'm in prison and they're in prison with me and we're all going to have a miserable time. So
no, exactly that. And I think there is that, actually sometimes it's not going to be immediately obvious how you switch that have to get to, because you might have to change your thinking about it over time.
I think
and
so.
Like you said, it starts with the get to, but hey, I have to exercise. Well, you don't have to, but you do get to. Well, why do I get to? Well, I've got a functioning body. That's amazing, and I want to be active, and I want to keep making the most of this. Hey, like you said, I have to go and teach 4 or 5 lessons today, or I get to impart wisdom to develop young people every day. For 4 or 5 hours. So there's just different ways of framing it, and it doesn't necessarily change, like you said, the external situation, but it can be a really valuable internal weather, shall we say. It's your internal weather, isn't it?
And I think one last thing is, this isn't about just change it and your life's going to change in a week. But imagine if regularly over time, every time I spot myself going, have to, I'm realizing I'm speaking that reactive voice. I'm embracing a victim mindset, and I'm less likely to actually see the good. Every time I see that's an opportunity, reframe. Where's the good? Where's the opportunity? Where's the gift? And then over a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, who knows how that will change the trajectory because of the way that I interact with people, with the tasks. Yeah.
There you go. So, thank you. It's a privilege that we get to do this podcast for you guys. I hope you've enjoyed listening this week.
And our invitation to you guys is that you get to join in changing your language.
There we are.
Your mindset.